when I was just going through surgically induced menopause.
Yeah. Well, and all of that is very difficult on a woman's body, and as you're pointing out, on a woman's mental state. And that is what, you would call a comorbidity, meaning something that's going along with the conclusion that you'll be happier if you transition, if you're not a woman at all, if you just turn into a man. Is that about right?
Yeah, all my problems would go away.
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't.
No.
They didn't go. In fact, like regret took 7 years. So, but it's still, looking back, I can see the root of where it came from. Just that disconnect, and then where I was in history, given like, 2016, 2017, 2018 was very peak Reddit, I don't know, trans, if you will.
And I'm not sure I know what that means.
Like,
Trans.
well, it's very social media language. I guess in English that means like on Reddit there was a lot of, and there still is. It's chock full of. So Reddit is like it's a social media site where like they have things called subreddits, and they're like message boards. If you were on the internet in the old days, they're kind of like old school message boards. Okay, people post and then comment underneath on the topic.
Mm-hmm. Maya, who was on a month or so ago,
mm-hmm.
and is only 19 now, talked about the impact of Reddit and some other social media sites on her thinking she might want to transition, which she didn't. So.
Oh, good for her. Yeah, but it is definitely on and it's like, it's even worse now. I actually, to be honest with you, if I go to my original Reddit account, which is, I now had to make a new one for detransitioning because I can't get away from the trans content on my original. It's like everything trans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Reddit is a very, very trans, I want to say trans supportive, but I feel like even that is too light of a term, because like in my days of scrolling on Reddit, I mean, even like trying to talk about my detransition on there, I'll get reported and have strikes against my account.
That's crazy.
I mean, I could very, very much see, if you're scrolling on there, you're in a really, really rough spot. And
you're not working
stuff. Yeah, you're not working. You don't have like this connection to the outside world, these like experiences that help you feel embodied. And then you fall into these communities on there that are like, oh, you feel this way. What was that like for you? As you first started coming across this content, you're coming into your transition, you're beginning testosterone. Like, what was your mindset like going into all of this?
Initially very private, because I guess my life online at the time was very anonymous. In fact, it was supposed to remain that way with my Twitter account I have now. That was an anonymous account too. That's a long story, but now it's not. So, but at the time I was like anonymous chronically online because I was sick and like disabled and at home and doing nothing but like sitting on my phone and laptop, looking at random YouTube or whatever I was doing. And I was very private about it. Like I wasn't, like, again, I didn't really have anyone to talk to. So I was talking to people online. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I started talking to people online, and I remember I had a friend who I first came out to as trans back then, like online, and then I didn't use the name Hendrix then. I was just like, my name is Eric.
Okay.
Because my birth name is Erica.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say that, but I do go by Hendrix. However, yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that that there are these online communities that, you know, people struggling so badly fall into. Oh, where did Ellen go?
Yeah.
I'm here.
Okay.
I was chatting in there. Well, I asked Darla if there was some way she could minimize me and maximize Hendrix. As you know, we are all learning this software together, and Darla has just come on, so that's fine.
So yeah, so
She plays with it.
So you're talking on these online Reddit communities. You're, you know, dealing with your medical issues. There's some, you know, mental, emotional things going on, and you're starting to begin the process of testosterone and beginning your transition. What was it like for you, you know, living in that life for, you know, those 7 years? Because, you know, like I know everyone has these different experiences as they go into, I guess, what we could call a medical transition when they begin to medicalize. And in my own experience, it was almost like a light at the end of the tunnel that I could never reach, but I was trying to run away from stuff. So what was that like for you during that 7-year period that you were in transition and medicalized?
I definitely was no doubt running away. I have severe trauma. I mean, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. When I say that, I've had a crazy life. I'm going to write a book. Like, I'm not going to get into it, a long story now. So one day everyone will just have to read it because it's just been crazy. That's all I have to say. So up to the point of transition, I had a lot of very traumatic things happen. Then losing not just my organs, but losing my career, which was my elite law career that I built myself, because like overnight because of a disease, was also impactful. I mean, I lost all self-esteem. I'm on these Reddit threads. I'm getting love bombed by other trans identifying individuals because they're like, oh yeah, you feel this way about gender, because it started about conversations just about gender. And I've always been gender nonconforming, so that's the root. That's how that conversation started with me and the trans community. That, and a lot of people would be like, "You're just trans," you know, because I've always been what you would consider a butch lesbian in my day. That's what in my day. That's what that's what I would have been called.
Yeah. Okay, I'm a little confused on the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
When did you? At what point in all of this did you start your law practice?
2011.
So 15 years ago.
Yes, at the end, like right after I passed the bar, I started taking clients.
Okay.
Which was wild, but
yeah. So it was, you had started your law practice, it was going well.
Correct.
Then you decided to transition, and that lost you friends and clients.
No. It was the disability that lost me my job. Like, obviously I couldn't work. So that's what I mean by I lost my career.
Okay.
I've had this happen now a few times where I've lost something in my life. Actually, it's a theme. Theme that's gone through. Like, I've had a house fire where I lost everything. I've experienced, grief, loss. I don't want to get into sad things, but
that's okay if you do. I mean,
yeah, but I don't want to go down that road. But it just is. It was overwhelming.
And what about your family? Have you had the support of your family
when I was transitioning? Interestingly, I want to do this with a caveat. When I came out as a lesbian in 1996, I came out to friends. I came out to my parents at the beginning in 1998, so I was 15 years old. It went terribly. I have a horrible coming out story. I ran away from home twice because it was violent. I was getting beaten. I was already in a violent home. I have a lot of trauma there with domestic violence, but so I ran away twice because it was getting bad just for being gay. Like that was it. Like, I was getting beat up for being gay and told permanently grounded. So I don't know. I ran away. The second time I ran away, this woman let me stay at her house because my ex-girlfriend was a senior in high school and I was a sophomore, and like the mom let me stay there. Anyway, she took me to a place to try to get me and my parents reunited. And
Hmm.
I ended up in like conversion therapy and mental hospital instead. So I have to say that because that's in a nutshell. That was so bad, and then it took decades for my family and I, all, like including nuclear to extended, to be okay with me being a lesbian. When I transitioned, everyone was supportive. I think because not because they were like rah rah trans, like they're not. I wouldn't call them like marching for trans pride allies, right? But I don't think they wanted to alienate me a second time, because the first time I came out as gay was so alienating, and they were so, you know what I mean? Like it broke us apart for
Yeah.
years emotionally. So,
Mhm.
and I want to remind people that gay people, you know, went through those things, and
Yeah.
I experienced that alienation. So I know, so experiencing it now, well, that's a different story. But yeah, my parents, I think reluctantly, that's the word I'm looking for. Reluctantly were accepting. And my sister told me when I told her I was detransitioning that she never saw me as a man. So
How'd that feel?
great, actually, because I was like, exactly.
Well, good, good.
And she did not mean it in any transphobic sense. She just meant it like as a sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, like
Like,
she just never could like get through that.
yeah, like she always saw her sister in you. That's actually
Mhm.
really sweet when you think about it.
I
It
think
Not
is.
it's
not
true.
to use this language, but it's really affirming.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
Definitely.
loaded word.
I know, now it is,
Yeah,
but
now it's like you can't. It's associated with all the naughty things.
yeah. Yeah, with what this whole scandal has done with language, it's insane. Um,
I agree.
The language police.
Well, it's even the word leftist, which my website says leftist commentary on politics, religion, and culture. And I'm like, when did being a leftist have nothing to do with class and poverty and justice in the courtrooms and all of those things, and start being, I mean, you see it all the time. It's the leftist wingnuts that have captured our kids on behalf of but that's a language issue too, because how do we communicate once people take our words away from us?
Like, yeah, how do you even within if you're on the left, let's say, and you're trying to work together as a caucus or on something, and then one part of the party disagrees with trans, or not disagree. I don't know how to word that. I guess it.
Disagrees with the medicalization of children, for
Yeah,
example.
yeah, like just yeah, disagrees with medicalization of children, and then one side is like, let's go and do that to everyone, and it's just how do you have common ground for even
Well,
non
I mean, like when you can't agree on what a woman is or what a man is. I mean, the basics of communication have been so disrupted, which is what Johnny brought that up. I don't know. Have you had
yeah.
any other thoughts on that, Johnny? Because I think
Well,
it's a very, very interesting phenomenon.
it reminds me of, I don't know if either of you or if our listeners have ever read the book 1984, but
Yes.
there's a concept in it called doublespeak,
Yeah.
which, it a lot of this capturing of language very much evokes that concept to my mind, because it's used to obfuscate what's actually being done. And I've noticed this, in my own experience being transitioned as a child. I was 13 when I was medicalized. Um, And these people will like use language with dual meanings. You know what I mean? Like top surgery, for example, it makes it sound very light and very easy. It's just,
It's a euphemism.
yeah, but it,
And
you
it
know,
directs you away from what is actually going on. It's a
yes.
Correct.
And
Pardon
same
me.
thing with like, you know, like I guess, you know, even with the words like gender affirming care, because while some people might feel like it's affirming to them, what I experienced and what you experienced, Hendrix, at least from what it sounds like, was, you know, this was not affirming us. We were dealing with coming from very homophobic backgrounds, and this acted is almost like a chemical conversion therapy for us to make us more like heteronormative,
Mm-hmm.
you
It
know?
does make you more heteronormative, if you will, like to the world.
Yeah.
I romantically, like, I'm with women, right? So I'm gonna look like a straight couple, or people may perceive that, like depending on how they perceive me. But people did perceive me as male with a beard. Like from just people don't look at you that closely in public. Trust me.
Right.
Let me
Yeah.
interrupt just for a second to welcome all the people that are listening with us. We're so glad you're here. Also, please think about liking this video and subscribing and sharing. Thank you. Very good, Darla. Thank you. It just popped into my head, and none of us is good yet about asking people to come on board and stay there, So
Yeah.
one thing that really interests me, okay, I was trying to see how far in. So you went to the, and if you're not ready to move on, if you have something else to say, either of you, Johnny or Hendrix.
No, I don't.
I'm curious about Obergefell v. Hodges.
Yes.
That must have been, so to remind our listeners, you went to hear the oral arguments at the United States Supreme Court, which is just a massive, it was a watershed event, I guess you would say, a watershed event. I mean, before people couldn't marry and after they could.
It was gigantic. That's a gigantic moment in history. I got admitted to practice at the U.S. Supreme Court before the Obergefell arguments because I was such a big figure in the gay rights movement locally that they raised money for me. And I have never told this story before.
Oh.
I mean, people that were there know about it. I did it on social media. Like, so it's not like this is a big secret. But this is 2015. Now we're, this is back then. Someone started a GoFundMe, and they raised the $200, and you have to find 2 attorneys who are admitted to practice in the U.S. Supreme Court to vouch for you. Now that part was not easy because people aren't just going to sign off on that. And then, but I had some really I had some power lesbians, let's put it that way, sign off on it that I met with and that I knew through the Stonewall Bar Association at the time, which I was the president of.
Wait, now let's slow down. Yeah. There was a Stonewall Bar Association.
Correct.
And this name doesn't have anything to do with like a town. It has to do with where the Stonewall riot or confrontation with the police happened the Stonewall was a gay bar. Is that right?
Correct. And I didn't start the organization or the bar association, to be clear, but I did become the president of it for 2 or 3 years, I want to say, and ran it, and it was an adventure. And then it got absorbed into the Michigan State Bar, then subsequently made a LGBTQ section. So it became
of the state bar.
Yeah, so the Stonewall Bar was its own thing. We met at Pronto in Royal Oak, which is a gay restaurant and bar. So we would meet in the gay establishment, do our gay and lesbian meetings as attorneys, and it was fun. Have drinks. I mean, it was just it was an interesting, fun time because it was history. anyway, so I got sent off to the U.S. Supreme Court by some great attorneys. I had also sat through the entire trial in Michigan, the DeBoer v. Snyder case. That was one of the 4 cases that went to the Supreme Court. That is Obergefell. There were 4 cases in that case, if that makes any sense to the listeners. 4 states were combined into 1 case.
4 states.
Yeah, 4 states.
Michigan.
I think. I can't remember the other 3 now. I'm having a brain lapse. I should know this.
That's okay. No, it's okay.
Because obviously, I mean, I should know that, but I sat through the entire trial, the 2-week trial. But Michigan was the only state that had an entire trial about gay marriage, like a literal federal trial in Michigan about.
And who were the
Like,
plaintiffs?
there were experts against gay marriage testifying. It's like, what a time to be alive.
Yes, and you were right there.
I was right there.
I mean, that is a book right there.
That's part of my book.
There's
I have
many
great
makers.
pictures of the Supreme Court. Like, it was, so going to Obergefell itself was an adventure. I went on a road trip with a good friend at the time to DC, and I slept on the Supreme Court lawn in a full suit and tie because I needed to get in the lawyer line very early because there's people start getting in line for cases like that. This is history. People are there. Okay, there are protesters there, like the butt crack of dawn, with mega horns yelling about gay people are going to hell, and and when I think about the scene, there were more protesters outside when I went in to the arguments. When I came out, there were way more supporters. There was human rights flags everywhere, and people cheering, and rainbow flags, and like so much support out there. I have a picture of coming out of the Supreme Court of the view, and I want that picture in my office one day, truly, or wherever I live, because I mean, I'm telling a long story, I guess, but it was history. I was there, and it was a triumphant moment. But I think where we went from there was the problem.
Yeah, and I have thoughts on that, and I think I shared them with you, but I'd like to linger a moment because this is, I hope it's as fascinating to our listeners and to Johnny as it is.
I mean, it's
me.
History.
So do you think so was the applaud and the flags and all of that, was that before the justices reached their conclusion?
Correct, because that was April.
That had an impact on their decision when they could actually see the mood of the people outside?
I always wonder that. And at the time, the court was made up of a different makeup than we have today.
Yeah.
It was a swing vote named Justice Kennedy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the swing vote. He was definitely the most powerful. He would swing on these social justice issues. To go back in history, there's 2003 Lawrence v. Texas overturned sodomy laws in Texas. Okay, and
sodomy had to do with gay sexual relations.
Correct.
It didn't have to do with men having sex with sheep, for example.
Yeah, no, it was with another male. But the argument there that won was that they were unequally enforcing it against gay people and not against straight people doing the same activity, and they're there for equal protection. So then you go up to, gay marriage, or I think there was another one in there. Well, no, anyway, get to Obergefell. Justice Kennedy is now the swing vote again on the issue of whether gay marriage should essentially be legal. There's a couple legal issues, but essentially whether it's going to be legal in all 50 states, because what happened is there was circuit splits, like federal court circuit splits everywhere on the issue of gay marriage. Once that happens, the Supreme Court will take up an issue because of all the splits in the court. If that makes any, I know I don't want to get into boring legal talk, but.
Well, I think I told you, my husband's a retired lawyer and my father was a lawyer. So for me, it's not boring.
All
But,
right.
and I do want to stop and say, if anybody's got any questions or any comments, please put them in there. And I think there is a comment. Look at that. I'm having trouble manipulating this wireless mouse of mine. Oh, Brian from Pennsylvania says, hi, everyone.
Oh, hello, Brian. He's
Hi,
great.
Brian.
Huh? What'd
I
you
think
say?
I said Brian is great. Hi, Brian.
Oh, hey, Brian. I'm glad you're great and I'm glad you're here.
He's a friend of ours from
Is it good?
Hodges.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you'll be a friend of mine too.
It's so amazing to me that you were there for this like landmark case that really did make history. I mean, that was really when we were at like peak acceptance of like gay people in this country. I remember being, because I was young at this time, I was like 11 or 12, but I remember when it was legalized and it was on the news, and my stepfather, because so many people, doubt stories like ours because they want to say, well, homophobia like that doesn't exist now. It's not the 1980s. And it's like, I don't think people realize how strong of a force homophobia is in the world, but even just like within our country in the US, because I remember when it was legalized, I mean, there were protests here in my hometown. My stepfather went on a rampage through the house,
Oh, people were not happy. There were people very unhappy. Kim Davis, does anyone remember her? The one that wouldn't do the marriage licenses, and she looks like, I won't even get into that. But Kim Davis is a famous one that wouldn't issue marriage licenses, and is still to this day complaining about it.
Yeah,
and Alabama.
She was in Alabama.
No, was she?
Oh, I don't know. I know she was somewhere.
No, I was about to say that in Alabama, you may remember I told
Kentucky.
you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, she was in Kentucky.
I officiated the first same-sex wedding as a Baptist minister and in Alabama on the day the Supreme Court decision took effect. And so I was kind of tuned into all of that. And at the time, when I was doing that wedding and subsequently for a while, to be married legally, you had to have a duly ordained minister officiate, and you had to get a license from the courthouse. And after that, on down the line a little bit, they did away with needing an officiant and needing a license from the court, and you just filed a statement of marriage, something like that. So speaking of Kim Davis, that made me think about that there was this silly backlash, and judges saying, well, I just won't participate. We'll just do something else. Well, good for you.
Yeah. And I was like, knock yourself out.
It concerned me at the time that there were so many people, while the law was still, you had to have an officiant who was a duly ordained member of clergy for a group that kept notes and all this stuff.
I became ordained also to do same-sex weddings, and I did quite a few lesbian and gay weddings, and some of my own family, but for free.
Yeah, that's awesome. But I was concerned because people were just popping up and getting married, saying that they were, in the name of the state of Alabama, I pronounced you wife and wife, husband and wife, and that wasn't right. And it wasn't legally correct. And it bothered me that people just thought, oh, but this is morally correct, so it must be legally correct. So that's the influence of being in lawyer families for over 70 years. It's how I think.
I feel for you because we can be a handful.
Lawyers?
Yeah, I feel like.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. I learned very on, don't ask daddy a question. Like with Al. Just don't. I just want a yes or no answer,
Mm-hmm.
We want supper at 5:30 or 6. Just an answer.
I do respond well to directness because I've been doing this for 15 years, so at least there's that. But I know exactly what you're talking about. There are some attorneys in court who it is like you never watch an award ceremony where they play the music to make the person's speech like let's go. But that you want to play that music for that attorney. That's how sometimes that's how sitting in court is after this long. So.
And so Brian says the answer is always, it depends.
I was going to say that,
Brian. Don't do that.
I was going to say it, but I was like, I'm not going to say it because every lawyer says it. But it's so true.
Do you have lawyers in your family, Johnny?
I do. I have my cousins are both criminal defense lawyers.
Okay.
So yeah, I totally get what you guys are talking about.
So about the negative fallout, if there was one, from Obergefell v. Hodges, the only reason Obama supported it, I think, is because the polls showed that over half Americans were in favor of gay marriage, and whether that had an impact on the court, I don't know. But one thing I think did happen, and you and I talked about this, Hendrix, is that and it's a speculation on my part, but when you've won the victory, you've also got no further need for the funding to come in. And so if you want the funding to come in, if you want to still have an organization, if you still want to be at the top of that organization, if you still want to show up for your employees, then you've got to have another cause. And it made sense to switch to the trans issue, which a lot of people, including me, thought was just another form of gay or lesbian. And so we need to subsume that into the umbrella. And in fact, anyway, maybe you could comment on that. But you or John.
It's called mission creep.
Yes.
Where an organization outlives its purpose, but then it wants to continue on, and therefore does exactly what you described. So when I was in activism and on boards and starting projects and working and doing all this activism and stuff, there was the trans issue did start to creep in right around after gay marriage, because what started happening is these bathroom bills what were known as bathroom bills,
right?
Started popping up in different, like what you would call a red state in America. I mean, just to generalize.
Yeah.
So yeah, it started. So some of the organizations, we just started being like, well, yeah, that's not right. That's what they told us. Like this is it. This is what we have to stand with the trans community.
Yeah, it just seemed like
that's how it started.
And then the bathroom, I mean, the way it initially struck me and other people is like, this is the silliest thing I've ever heard.
It sounded dumb, didn't it?
It just felt dumb and concocted and not an issue. And then it turns out that in fact there are times when it's a real issue. And then it got into sports and it got into.
Well, you know what happened? It was ahead of its time. Let's put it that way. In terms of it, right idea, wrong maybe message in time. Because the way it was packaged did sound absolutely ridiculous to my age group too. I'm an elder millennial, whatever you want to call it, zennial, whatever. I was born in 1982. Okay, everyone, and whatever generation I am in, I was young and I was absolutely a hardcore Obama Democrat at the time, and young, and like hell yeah, gay marriage, right? Anyway. But well, I forgot what I was gonna say. I hate when that happens.
Okay, let's see. You were saying you were a Democrat,
Yeah,
lifelong. Yeah, as was I, and I exited in 2012 for different reasons.
I left in 2017 for different reasons. I left the party, and I became an independent for a very long time, and until I went a little more to the right. But for a completely separate, unrelated reason to trans or anything like that, I left the Democratic Party in 2017.
Yeah,
At least the Michigan Democratic Party, I was done.
and that's like, to me, with the reasons I left, which had nothing to do with gay, lesbian, anything. Well, now I've lost my train of thought. It's like a trap was set for the Democrats and people who are on the side of wanting to see people be treated well. And it's like a trap was set, and Democrats just walked right in.
It's what Gad Sad would call suicidal empathy.
Who calls it that?
Gad Sad, I think that's his name. He's got this book.
Empathy.
Yeah, there's a book out right now that is like a #1 bestseller. Really a great book about exactly that. Not how I would describe that and I'm halfway done with the book, so I don't want to speak for the entire thing.
Yeah.
The concept is just like the kind of empathy. Let's take the trans kids, for example. Like that would be an example of suicidal empathy. In fact, I got a magazine in my mailbox. So I get this magazine called The Progressive that I can't get rid of. Like I subscribed many moons ago. I don't pay for it. I want it to stop coming. It's the most left-wing magazine on earth. It's like basically communism. I can't take it, right? So it comes the other day and I opened it up just to see. It was the Pride issue and it was chock full of, you can only imagine, the most extra imagery of transgender and other, related items. So yeah, I opened it up and it's an article about kids, about trans kids. But in this particular article is about a 4-year-old. And they were talking about this transgender kid who is a boy. Obviously, they were trying to trans him into a girl at 4. He came out, you're telling me, and I haven't.
He knows. This 4-year-old knows. Yeah.
And it's a really scary concept. I love the idea or the terminology suicidal empathy, though, because that sort of connects back to what I was saying earlier with language being weaponized in this way. It manipulates people. It hijacks whatever part of us evokes empathy. It evokes the suicidal empathy, and people want to be there. Because when you hear this term like, oh, support trans kids, then everyone's like, oh my gosh, yes, of course, I support children. I want children to be healthy. And they don't realize this process of grooming and medicalization, essentially, that goes on behind closed doors within these clinics. Because I even remember in the clinic that medicalized me, they started seeing kids down to like 4 or 5 years old, not to medicalize, but they start the social transition around then, and they set them up to be medicalized later. It was like, and that was in 2016. So by the time I arrived there, like I would say right as the culture, gay marriage happened, that was legal. And then just that short window of time later, it was like peak trans in the culture. You had like the Caitlyn Jenner Vanity Fair cover, you had all of this stuff in the media. And by then there was already this conveyor belt of kids from all sorts of different backgrounds.
Well, 2 things that happened in 2015 that were really big for trans, like, I guess, visibility, which was that Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner did an interview, a coming out interview, and me and all my little gay and lesbian friends watched it because we wanted to be supportive. Like we didn't understand we didn't understand what we were doing. You know what I mean? Like at the time, this was just like, okay, but we did like we knew trans people around, but transgender wasn't like a quite a social contagion in 2015 quite, but it was around. But I wouldn't say it was like my generation was it had that happening.
Darla has put in the chat for us. Gad Sad hosts a YouTube show titled The Sad Truth, SAAD. During fall 2025, Sad became a visiting scholar at the University of Mississippi's Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom. So that's really interesting. Thank you for that, Darla.
Thank you, Darla. I didn't know that.
That
I read his other book called The Parasitic Mind. That's a good, but that's came out like or after COVID, so that was like a different breed of like cultural commentary. But this current book is a really good one that's applicable to many things. I would recommend it. But anyway, back to what we were saying. And
Yeah.
facts.
Well, you were talking about kids and the politics, and
Yeah.
as a Democrat, I'm kind of invested in what the Democrats are up to, and it was Biden's who removed age restrictions. Biden's Rachel Levine.
Oh dear, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the idea that there should be no age restrictions, and then along comes this 4-year-old whose parents may be just either overwhelmed, or there are a lot of reasons, you could get into. So it really is a problem. My grandson, when he was 3 or 4 years old, decided he wanted to test out what it was like to be a cat. So for like a year, he answered every question with meow, meow. Make it stop. And he grew out of it. He no longer is curious about what it means to be a cat. But I would like to, we don't want to keep you forever. Which we could. I could get stuck on the legal stuff.
Oh yeah, I could. You all have been great. This has been. I enjoy chatting about different topics, and I don't get to do it as often as I'd like.
Yeah. Well, the whole Obergefell that you were there is just. So I wanted to ask you. So let's move into when you decided to detransition, and you sent out a tweet.
Sure did.
Which went viral, and to which J.K. Rowling responded, and I'm going to see if I can put part 1. Okay.
That is part 1.
So, in case there are people who are listening and maybe can't read it, you posted, "I'm detransitioning. My name will still be Hendrix. My birth name carries a lot of abuse with it, so Hendrix stays. I will block anyone using my prior name. I was not talked into this or groomed. This is what I want. I made the choice to transition as an adult, and the buck stops here. I won't be suing anyone, nor am I angry about it. However, after a lifetime of trauma due to being a female and 15 plus years of endometriosis, I disconnected from my female body completely. More gatekeeping could have caught this instead of an all affirmation model. This is why I find the informed consent model to be flawed after 7 years of being a female and 15 plus years of endometriosis. No. Oh, that was the end of your tweet. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it got, so what are the numbers here? 2.6 thousand comments.
8.9. It was almost 9 million views.
Yes,
that many
8.9
comments.
million views. I see that.
This went cuckoo bananas viral. The name Hendrix was trending for 2 days on Twitter. Like just the name Hendrix. Like That's it. Now I'm known as Hendrix. One name. People on Blue Sky, trans people on Blue Sky and Reddit, people are going wild. Like there's a Reddit thread that has like maybe 400 comments on it, like just dragging me. That when you Google me, it's the first thing that comes up that says avoid attorney Hendrix Moise. Like it's awful. And yeah, like this was a moment that I'm going to never forget.
And so J.K. Rowling, who has turned into, she was not just our favorite author and creative mind, turned into a TERF on the spot, a trans exclusive radical feminist. And she, I don't know if this is good or bad, but she came to your defense and she said,
can I say she used to have me blocked? She blocked me because we used to talk before. But anyway, go on.
Yeah. Well, she said, I know we've had our differences, but this is one of the bravest posts I've ever read on here. Welcome home. And you replied, thank you. It feels hard, but it's the right thing for me. I'm glad to be home. And her tweet got 22,000 likes, 551 retweets, and 224 comments. So that's just an amazing.
And then there's the other part of that, but that alone, like that was the shot heard around the world because I came out of court. I made that post. We've talked about it, where I made that post like maybe 6:30 in the morning, or I don't know, sometime in the morning before court. Court was at 8 a.m. So sometime before that, I made this post to kind of hold myself accountable to the idea of detransitioning. And you can tell I'm still trying to walk the line with the trans community. You can tell I'm still like, I don't even find when you were reading it anything to be transphobic or a reason to hate me for that. Having said that, that's not how people saw it. I didn't start off like, I guess, out of the gate just this bullhorn hostile. I mean, you know, but then once the dragging and the doxing and the abuse starts, well then, you know, things got very out of hand.
We have some questions. Not a question, but a comment from, I believe this is a friend of ours. And she writes, this framing, the support trans kids framing, showing it as empathy, like being against child abuse or against racism. It's to vilify anyone who questions what is going on.
You're absolutely vilified. That's what happened to me. I'm an apostate now.
Yeah, that's why I said you defected.
Yeah, I defected from the cult.
Yeah, it's like, you know, a priest who believes the priesthood.
Well, you know, I said when on my way out, I was like, I never said I was trans Jesus. And then I called myself trans Judas after that because I was like joking, like I went to Catholic school and I like biblical references. I mean, I can't help it. But so on my way out of the trans community, I never said I was trans Jesus. Like, I never said like I am your Lord and Savior trans man. That's how, and they can say that they didn't feel that way or whatever. The evidence is there. The tweets, I don't delete tweets, so anyone can go search whatever they like. However, I don't want to get too far back into Twitter history. Having said that, the trans community I had on Twitter, I had friends on there. I had 5,500 people in like trans community. I had like, you know, before they just got rid of it, but on Twitter there was communities before, and you could close them and join the community and just post in it. And so I had a trans community, and it had 5,500 something people. I had to stop accepting people because I just couldn't. I was overwhelmed. Anyway, and like most of my following was just trans and trans allies, and I was just very well known for activism but my activism didn't start out as trans. I want everyone to understand that. That came later. This came in the maybe
Right.
in the
Right.
last, like, couple of years of my transition, where I became more politicized because I went back to work and I went back to working for orgs. That's exactly what happened
Went back to working for what?
with like LGBTQ orgs, because I started
Orgs. Yeah.
slowly, like even with a disability, I started to like do, I do work. I do work, and I was doing at the time a bunch of LGBTQ activists. I started doing like slowly at first, but different. That's how I started working again, I guess, is getting back into LGBTQ activism. So that is at the time when I came back into it. When I went out of it, when I became disabled at the beginning of 2017. I mean, I was never out of it, but just like not working with an org. It was gay rights and then some trans rights. When I came back into it around 2022, it was entirely trans. Entirely.
Yeah.
And if you didn't follow that agenda by 2022, you were canceled at what 1,000%.
Yeah, if you weren't following the agenda and trying to, advocate for it, then the community just kind of outcast you as a transphobe. I mean, I even remember going through some of that when I still was living as a trans woman, and people were like, well, what are your thoughts on this? Oh, well, I think this. Well, you're a hateful bigot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, we talked a little bit about it before we went live, but I'm sure, after you made this tweet, after being involved in this activism for all this time, you had built this community around you, this trans community around you, and then you make this tweet to detransition, becoming an apostate or a trans Judas. I'm sure the backlash was just immense. How did you handle that, going through all of that? And what has it been like for you, becoming outspoken in the detrans space?
Well, I'm going to be very honest with everyone. I did not handle it well because I got kicked off a board. I got kicked off the Affirmations board that I had been associated with them somehow since 1996. And now I was on their board and did a lot of volunteer work with them, and had just a long history. And it was a witch hunt. They kicked me off the day after I announced my detransition. I had to resign from other LGBTQ boards because of my comments about not agreeing with trans kids and other reasons. I spent the entire summer of 2025 in bed and depressed, and I already have depression, so I was like, but depressed, right? Where like if I wasn't working, I was in bed. And then I don't know how to put this in a sensitive context, but I started to develop suicidal ideation, if that's the most sensitive way I can put it. It became very persistent, and then I started to plan. I got into the planning phase of that. By around August, the pressure on me was so. I mean, they came after my law firm, emailed me by the hundreds, trying to get me fired. I own the law firm, so I'm not firing myself. That's absolutely hilarious. But it's still crazy. Like, I have all my friends turn on me for not doing this or not saying that, or and but then I had everyone pulling me in 900 directions. I had TERFs pulling me this way, trans people pulling me this way. I felt like I was being pulled like in all these directions, and I was just like this all of a sudden, because I'd been well known before, but in a state, not like, holy crap, this is not everybody knows I'm doing this.
You were known locally, but not internationally.
No, and the backlash hurt. It hurt. Like, I'm just gonna be honest. I don't even care if that makes me vulnerable. It hurt. That was a loss of 30 years of work, dedication, and quite frankly, do I regret it? No, I would do it all over again, because at the end of the day, I'm not all of it. Not all of it. I mean, there's some, like, later on, I would skip the trans part. But the gay rights stuff, I'm proud of that. And like, they can say whatever they want about me now, but I can go to sleep at night. I have helped people. By the hundreds in my life, countless even. I can't even count how many gay and or lesbian and or trans and or poor and or drug addict. I mean, like, really embodying my own suicidal empathy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm just so sorry that happened to you. I told you yesterday that I can relate in,
Well,
a small. We do have some comments. I think Darla must have put this up. If you're interested in the book, Suicidal Empathy, it's SAAD, SAAD, published 2026. The book is called Suicidal Empathy, Dying to be Kind. And it's New York, New York, Broadside Books. The ISBN is 978-0063446533. And Brian, our new friend Brian, my new best friend Brian, says, I saw much of the process occur organically, conversation by conversation. And Belladonna says, hello.
hi, Belladonna. Welcome to the chat. I love Belladonna. I think
Okay, all your friends have turned out to support you.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, I was just going to ask, like, so you went through all of this backlash and now, well, in the detrans space, it's ongoing. We still get backlash, but, now you're an outspoken advocate in this space. How has that been for you? Have you been able to build like a community around yourself in this space as well? Do you feel that? Do you have that like support?
I would say yes and no. I'm still kind of working on that because, like, I guess let me put it in this context. How do you replace 3 decades of relationships? And you don't, not overnight, right? Not overnight. There's a grief process that I have to go through, and like I'm at a much better place. I do have some detrans friends, just actually, well, one in particular that I'm very close to. I'm not going to name any names live.
That's okay.
Yeah,
no
but
worries.
yeah, I'm just saying, like, I have found camaraderie in this space, but it is difficult because, to be honest with you, it's like walking like blind in a blizzard. That's how I describe detransit. Like, when you come out as detrans, there's really no guidance, so to speak, or like a safety net. There was nothing. There was nothing to catch me. Now, people think there was something to catch me, but there was not, me in particular. I was too much of an apostate and too much of a traitor for there to be a safety net for me, for someone like me. But there should be some deprogramming conversations and cult, maybe, like, not cult, but conversation around leaving the community, that counseling that should happen. I think that should definitely be, but there should be guidance of some sort, is what I'm saying. I guess that's what I advocate for a detransitioner, and most of them are going to be young. Let's be honest.
Yeah, because even just in the, coming at it from the pediatric transition space, I mean, that's really exploded over the past 10 years. It's wild. And I do agree, there does need to be more of like a safety net for people that come out of this, because it's such a massive life altering thing. It's not a simple thing to come back from, even just on like a mental emotional level, because it's like you're carrying all this distress and you're presented with a way out that's really hard to let go of. And then once you do, as you say, there's this whole grieving process that comes along with that. And I mean, I know firsthand from going through it, and our stories aren't the same, but are similar in a lot of ways. So I feel for you. And yeah, I hope, the longer we're able to advocate in this space, I hope that we're able to build that like safety net for people over time. It's gonna take us a while, I'm sure, with how the culture war, inflames everything. But hopefully we'll be able to build that, maybe together. We'll see.
It's like almost like a 1-by-1 movement. But there are other detransitioners out there, I would like to know, that won't come out publicly because of the backlash. It's so brutal. And what happened is they made an example out of me.
Yeah.
They showed other people what would happen if you left the cult.
And that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is helpful for me to say, but I grew up in the civil rights movement in Albany, Georgia.
Okay.
It was the first place Martin Luther King was put in jail. And then in Birmingham, and my parents were very outspoken integrationists, as we said. And I remember I used to tell my mother, because they would get death threats against me and my little sister and that kind of thing. And so I was kind of closeted. I think I relate to that because I never wanted anybody to know who we were, because the social death was, it was real. And so anyway, my point is, I used to say to my mother, why can't we move to the north where people aren't like this? Or why can't y'all just stop? Just stop saying it's never going to change. It's always going to be like this. But they didn't stop. And the next thing, it all sped up. And the next thing you knew, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and all the things happened. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think I give you a word of encouragement, because I hate what's happened to you. I hate it. And I think you've been prophetic, if I can use a religious term, prophetic, and that's what happens to prophets. Yeah. So I hate it. I hate it what's happened to you. Johnny had a great idea, which is that we keep our guests for around an hour. I think it was a great idea. We're going to kick this off today, let you go, and then he and I are going to sort of talk about what we've heard you say and what it makes us think, and then hope that we've got a great crowd, by the way. They all turned out for you, Hendrix, and for Johnny.
Yeah, this has been lovely. Are you on YouTube? How do I watch this?
Yes, I'm on Facebook and YouTube. I could use some support on Facebook.
On Facebook and YouTube, it's live. And as we're chatting, if you have like anything you want to throw in, like another thought or like anything at all, please feel free to send a comment in, and we will include that in. So
I'll just hang out in the chat for a little bit, because I do have to go to bed with them, so I do have court tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay.
And come back anytime.
Absolutely, you've both been lovely, and thank you for letting me tell those stories. I mean, they're history, and I appreciate the opportunity. All right, so have a good night.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Okay,
have
we'll
a good
let
night.
you go, and then we'll talk about it, and we'd already have some other comments. So I'm gonna let you go, Hendrix, and you can join the chat if you want to. But yes, live streams on YouTube, and then it's recorded on YouTube, and it's on my self-named channel, Ellen Jimerson, on YouTube. So this seems abrupt, but I'm going to remove you. The life of podcasters. We have no clue what we're doing, but we do it.
I mean, we're learning it as we're going.
We're learning it as we go.
We will perfect the process as time moves forward.
We must be doing something right, because we got a great crowd, and we've got Annabelle, AGP ex-wife, says, Texas children, are you listening? And Brian said, Hendrix is a brave and impressive individual all around. So yeah, this is your idea, Johnny, to let him go, and then we talk, and hopefully people who are listening in will comment, chime in.
Yeah, I thought that was a very good conversation. I mean, Hendrix is a really powerful voice and personality in this space, as I was saying before, we went live. And, has just been through so much through all of this, and was really on the like cutting edge of at least gay civil rights, as those were being pushed through in the United States. So that's why I was excited to have this conversation today and, hear about her experiences with that and actually being in the courtroom as these arguments were being made. I mean, that was such a pivotal point in her history. And then going into the transition, I thought it was fascinating. Well, not fascinating. It's incredibly unfortunate that it was easier for Hendrix to get testosterone for transition as opposed to medical care for endometriosis.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate, but not uncommon experience with detransition. I could at least talk from my own experience. Insurance covered all of my transition, but coming out of it, they don't cover any of your medical care. So it's unfortunate, but I do like that we were able to really touch on that. I would love to have Hendrix on in the future and get more in depth into that. What were your thoughts on this conversation today?
I think I mentioned to you when I first learned of Hendrix, and I invited him to come on the show, or her, I'm sorry. It's just, if somebody looks like a man, then, and you don't know that, and I apologize, but I saw the vitriol aimed at her. And, part of me is like, what am I getting into? Who is this person? And then I talked to you, and you said, well, you had talked with her, you knew her, and, she was legit. And then, when she and I talked yesterday, and I learned that she had actually gone to listen to the oral arguments, and, I'm just like, this person is brave and interesting and has witnessed these. I mean, that really was a watershed moment, if you know what I mean by a watershed moment, where you're going along like in a river, and then it breaks off, and you're either going to go in that direction or you're going to go in that direction. And then, so yeah, all of that, the pushback is just, and I was telling the truth when I said, I think Hendrix has been prophetic. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens to prophets. Other people feel betrayed or exposed or realize that they've been had, or whatever it is that causes people to react so strongly. And as I say, I can relate it to my childhood. Even my little sister, when she was about, well, it would have been during when Kennedy was running for president, which was in 1960. So she would have been 7 years old, and she was in somebody's house. And the mother, when she found out we were supporting Kennedy, they told my 7-year-old sister to get out of the house.
Wow. That's insane.
It is insane. And when Kennedy was assassinated, I'm hoping that this relates some way. When Kennedy was assassinated, I was in my 7th grade math class. And the children in my class and around me, when they told us he was dead, erupted into applause. And
wow.
And saying I guess I better not say the word, I don't want to get a strike, the N-word lover is dead. And of course we were N-word lovers, and it was horrifying what had happened. It was horrifying how those kids responded. It was horrifying because I got a better look at what they thought of me if I were not so closeted.
Yeah,
So,
well, it does relate in a huge way because, I mean, in a way, history is repeating itself. I mean, perhaps not on the same subject, but in
right,
relations to, this medical scandal, very much so. That is how it is. Like, I even remember when, like, with what happened to Charlie Kirk, and there were so many people, even within my generation, that were cheering it on, and I'm like, how can you cheer on death?
how
Like,
can
that is
you
not.
don't know him?
Yeah.
All you know is clips of things he said
Well,
without any context.
my point has always been, even if you disagree with somebody, you should never wish ill upon them. That really exposes, I feel the vitriol that people display really exposes their intentions. And from the trans perspective, when you come out as detransitioner and you get this backlash from people within that community, I feel like, part of that is split between, a lot of people have their own socio-political intentions that kind of come to the forefront, and they expose how the hatred in them and their hearts. And then on the other side, you have people that, quite frankly, were sold the same, I don't want to say lie, but they were sold the same idea that they could escape their problems in life or their situation if they pursued this transition. And then I think with a lot of these people, they see people like myself or like Hendrix or some of these other detransitioners out there, and we are almost a threat to that worldview because we were all told very similar things. In regards to this. And if you pay attention to what a lot of these, I'm going to say haters from this community say, a lot of us were sold the same lies. So I feel like it's almost a combination of feeling threatened. And then you also have this scary situation where history is starting to repeat itself and people are falling into these more extreme political ideologies, sort of like what you were saying, except for, and it's not in relation to race, it's in relation to this medical scandal.
Well, I mean, we've had medical scandals before. And, I'm from Alabama. And, it was the home of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, which I don't know if you know anything about. But this was carried out by the federal government. And what they did was they went to, I don't know if it was Selma or somewhere in the, Tuskegee, clearly, which is in that Black Belt area. And some of the population is 90% African American, poor, made poor, kept poor, capital of the US. And the federal government, the doctors, went down there and experimented on these men. And they got their consent, but the consent was, you put an X there. They weren't consenting to doctors watching them die of syphilis. They weren't consenting to that. They thought the doctors were going to help them. And the doctors didn't help them. And even after penicillin was developed, they didn't give the penicillin to the men who could have been cured. And, more and more syphilitic children. It was the longest running non-therapeutic medical experiment on human beings in history so far as we know. From 1932 to 1972, and it was carried out by the federal government and doctors and nurses. And the issue of consent is there. I don't care what you say. A man who may not have even finished second or third grade, a man who's worked in the fields all his life. These white doctors come to him and they say, we're here to help you, or there's an implication. And so they put their X on the paper. They cannot consent, and children cannot consent. That was the big issue with the syphilis experiment. They could not consent, and the doctors knew what they were doing. And it's the same thing now. And so I don't know why we study these things if we can't draw some parallels and learn some lessons.
Well, and that's what they say. It's scary when people start to forget history, because then it allows it to repeat, and even in your description of that prior scandal, I already can hear some common elements between that and this current trans medical scandal. It's truly frightening, and that's where I'm just so glad for spaces like this, or for like Jen Specht, who has been so kind in supporting me. Or even for voices like Hendrix and, others out there, because we're sort of leading the tide to expose that, this movement is not all it's cracked up to be. And ultimately there is a lot of harm being done that needs to be acknowledged as well. So
we have a couple of more comments from Brian. He said it took so much courage, and he's speaking of Hendrix, to be at the forefront of gay, lesbian civil rights. To be disowned curtly after decades of investment is disgraceful. And it is, it's disgraceful. And he said, good analysis by Johnny. And then he said, great commentary by Ellen too. Consent without capacity is based on fraud is not consent. No, it's not. It's not consent.
Exactly. And that really strikes at the root of this whole scandal, because, much of it is sold either on a lack of information, or, to people who are either young, like I was, or people who are under extreme distress that is not being acknowledged otherwise.
And to people like your mom and the other parents who are saying, you're going to commit suicide. If you don't let him do this, he's going to commit suicide.
Yeah,
statistics show, suicide. Even though statistics don't show that. And common sense would tell you people would be more likely to, as Hendrix pointed out, to consider ending their life after something like this has happened to their bodies. And
yeah, well, and the data is starting to show that. It is starting to show that, the suicide rate and mental, emotional fallout of this really goes up much more after you go through with the medicalization aspect. So it's really starting to show the opposite of what we've all been told all these years. And that really just strikes at the heart of this whole thing. So yeah, I thought this was a very good discussion. I'm very excited to see, who listens and who this impacts after we post it on YouTube. Yeah. What are some closing thoughts from you?
I guess the same thoughts I have all along is that people really need to think. They need not to participate in oppressing people who are already vulnerable. And they ought to read the documents like Skermeti. What does it actually say? Does the Florida bill actually say you can't say gay? No, right. It doesn't.
Exactly.
So stop. And that happens all the time. We see it with comprehensive immigration reform, that people were not reading that proposal that came out in 2012, which I'm sure you don't remember. But even advocates were pushing it, and they hadn't read it. It was a terrible package The Epstein files. Just because somebody sends an email to the DOJ anonymously, I mean, that's basically the kind of thing that happened to Hendrix, is you get these preposterous comments and thoughts, and take a breath. Take a breath.
Yeah, I agree completely. Just before we close out, Darla left this comment in our private chat. If a minor cannot legally consent to have sex, how can they possibly legally consent to transition? Moronic.
Yes,
and I agree.
Darla. Right.
You know, this has been my point for years, well, really since I started detransitioning. I can't really say for years, but since I started detransitioning, which I guess that is years, a little over 2 years now. This has been my whole point. I couldn't consent to sex then, which is, has permanent elements, but it's less of a permanent decision than physically altering your body and your development in like a medicalized transition. So if you can't consent to one thing, how can you possibly consent to this other thing?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that people get so upset with the Epstein files. They're like, well, I don't care if she was 18 or 17. She was not in a position to consent.
Yeah.
But let's go. Let's keep going with these trans. Let's support these trans kids by cutting off their perfectly healthy breast. I mean, there's no logic there. And Brian says, well, this is nice. Ellen knows her stuff. The Florida law had nothing to do with gays, lesbians. Thank you for bringing that up. I try to know my stuff. If I'm going to have a real strong, that's my central point. If you're going to have a real strong opinion or something, please crack a book. Please look up a Supreme Court decision and read it and see if it does say the things that you're so horrified about. So,
I mean, that really is the crux of the matter.
Thing to say, Brian. I have a new best friend.
He's very sweet. All right. Well, anything else before we
Yes.
Here?
Do like, do subscribe, do share, tell all your neighbors what a wonderful podcast you have found. Make sure you say that Johnny is here. And so Jen Speck is sort of hovering in the background. And next week, we're going to have the remarkable California mom, whose name is Beth. I don't know if she pronounces it Byrne or Bourne, who works for the University of California, Davis. And she's been all over this whole invasion of women's spaces, doing things like going before the school board or whatever it was and taking her clothes off. I mean, just down to her underwear, but they're like, put your clothes back on. I'm like, wait a minute.
She is such a powerful advocate for women and girls in California. I'm very excited for that discussion.
Yeah.
I follow her Twitter, and I love the stuff that she
Good. She, I mean, I'm sure we would find things to disagree about, but I find things to disagree about with everybody. Al like 12 times a day, my husband. But that doesn't mean. But I just think she's just remarkable. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that. So we want to see everybody back here this time, or 8 o'clock Eastern time. And thank you, Darla. It's been so exciting. In 1 week, we got Darla to come on to be in the booth and Johnny to come on as a co-host.
Yes, and I just want to send out my appreciation to Darla as well, because despite me being in my early 20s, I'm tech stupid, and this would not have run as smoothly if I was in the booth. So
I know.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I was pushing buttons left and right last week when the co-host didn't arrive. And it's like, you can't just start pushing buttons. Well, that's all I knew to do.
It's like, oh.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Johnny. And thank you, Hendrix. Thank you, Brian. And all Annabelle and Belladonna and all the people who joined in. We had a terrific crowd. This is so exciting. And we will see you back here next Tuesday to talk with Beth Byrne.
Perfect. All right. Have a good night.
Y'all have a good night. Bye-bye, Johnny.